his retirement from the NFL after a 17-year career in which he played for the Chargers and Indianapolis Colts. Rivers was an 8-time Pro Bowler, ranks 5th all-time in both passing yards and TDs. He has, however, never played in a Super Bowl, leaving some to question if he is Hall of Fame worthy. Stephen A., how do you think Philip Rivers should be remembered?
He's in the category of very good, not great. At least his resume is not great. Philip Rivers, to me, is not a Hall of Famer. I say that respectfully because I'm very fond of him, and I appreciate the career that he's had. You throw for over 63,000 yards, I'm going to give you the respect that it's due. You barely have a 2-to-1 touchdown to turnover rate to interception ratio. I think it's like, 421 touchdowns, 209 interceptions. You completed about 65% of your career passes, 64.9 to be exact. You've quarterbacked in the National Football League for 17 years. You made the playoffs 7 times. All right? And you never went to a Super Bowl. That is not Hall of Fame. We can slice it any way we want to. That is not Hall of Fame. And if there's anybody with a comparable resume that's in the Hall of Fame, you are doing a disservice to those who are in the Hall of Fame already with obviously much more lofty resume. Championships matter. Appearances in championship games matter. Continuity in postseason play matters. All of those things lend itself towards validating. And again, you don't have to win the championship, but all of those things validate. A combination of all of those things. When I'm able to look at your TD to interception ratio, when I'm able to look at you being out of the playoffs more than you were in the playoffs, when I'm able to look at the fact that you've never won a championship, nor have you ever competed in the championship game, it's hard for me for you to have a resume that's absent all those things, and then to say you're a Hall of Famer when I'm looking at most Hall of Famers and they don't have that problem. I can't do that. I respect the hell out of Philip Rivers. His knowledge of the game is not to be questioned. Some of the great moments he produces not to be questioned. I mean, no disrespect, but that resume
you said
is not a Hall of Fame resume.
Very good. What do you say?
Yeah, he's in the Hall of Very Good, I agree. And the tough thing is, and I think he might actually eventually get in. Normally what you said would keep him out, but because he came from the same draft class as Eli and Roethlisberger, and Roethlisberger's a Hall of Famer. I think we all agree he's going to get in.
Yeah.
And Eli, because of his play in the playoffs, he won 2 Super Bowls and on the road beat Favre and Rodgers at Lambeau in 2 different seasons and Tom Brady in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And he's one of the most clutch players in the history of American team sports when you look at how he's going to probably get in also. Mm-hmm. And I think when people look at it, they're going to say, I remember Rivers and Eli, and Rivers was maybe a little better than Eli normally. I think he'll eventually get in, but I
think
agree.
he gets in too.
I agree. And also he had an Iron Man streak like Eli for a long time, and he was a team guy and a tough guy. But I agree he shouldn't get in. Number one, the numbers that he put up, which were excellent, and I was rooting for him, and I always thought he would win a Super Bowl. He was playing in a Norv Turner offense a lot of the time compared to, say, someone like Eli was playing in a Wendy's situation where the offense was much simpler and more quarterback-friendly, and he had less responsibility in that offense than, say, Eli. And the reason I'm bringing up Eli, not because I'm a Giants fan, but because we all agree on Roethlisberger. Mm-hmm. He's getting in. So Rivers' stats maybe look a little bit better than they should, in fact. And as Stephen A. points out, they don't look, oh, my God, all-world incredible. And then he was on enough good teams where special quarterback play maybe at least gets you to a Super Bowl. And too often, he didn't come through with good enough play. And a couple times you could point to it and say, Rivers really should have played better in that game. I think what it adds up to is because of the quarterback class he was in and how he compares to those guys, eventually he'll get in. But it pains me to say because I always rooted for him. I wouldn't vote for him.
Do you realize that Philip Rivers never missed a game in his career?
Yeah, that's the kind of thing.
I'm just looking at his numbers. Every year since 2006, he got drafted in 2004, of course. 2006, he became a starter. Yep. He played all 16 games for the last 14 years.
I mean, that's got to count for something. When we talk about situation in our earlier debate, he wasn't necessarily in the best situation.
It counts to give him respect.
Yeah.
It does not make him a Hall of Fame.
Not the call to the Hall?
I think Roethlisberger and Eli kind of drag him in.
I think they drag him out.
Because he didn't win.
Stephen A. doesn't even think Eli. Eli should be in. You've argued that before.
I've questioned that. Yeah.
All right, we will leave it there. By the way, he's now going to be coaching. Turn to ESPN pay-per-view this weekend. UFC 257 headlined by notorious Conor McGregor taking on Dustin Poirier. McGregor sat down with Stephen A. earlier today. Here's what he had to say.
Do you feel you have to win this fight in a very big and dramatic fashion? This can't be a decision. It has to be typical KO from the man that's got 19 knockouts in his UFC career, which would be you. Does it have to end in spectacular fashion?
There you go, Stephen. It's all I know. It's all I do is put people out, and I'm going to do so again on Saturday night. Mark my words.
How do we know that you're not going to retire after knocking out Dustin Poirier, assuming that that's the case? How do we know that you're not going to just walk away again? You've retired a couple of times in your career.
I retired out of frustration. You know what I mean? I couldn't get my belts, and it was like, you know what? You're not going to treat me with respect. I'm gone. You know, sometimes you got to take yourself out of a situation if you're not being respected or appreciated, and just, you know, just distance yourself from it. And that's what it was. It was born out of frustration. The truth is, the fight game will never get rid of me. Conor McGregor will be here until the day I go out. So that's it. If they line me up, I'll get about 7 fights in the next next year and a half. That's what I want. I've done 7 fights in my featherweight run inside, like, I believe 14 months. That's what I'm looking for. You know what I mean? I've got 4 fights left on my contract. I've got 4 fights left on this contract with the UFC. I do it in the first quarter of 2021 if they give me the dates.
Amen to that. Sometimes you got to take yourself out of a situation, remove yourself, come back better and stronger.
Yeah.
Preach. You look very young, Stephen A. That was the Stephen's A World set. Looking like a real young buck. This health heating's working for you.
Listen,
they can catch the full interview on Stephen A's World on ESPN Plus, right?
I heard a little bit about it. You don't want to miss it.
Yeah, baby Stephen A. That's what I'm here for.
No, I appreciate you bringing up. You know, I've been working, Max.
Yeah, you're looking young. You look
18
good.
pounds.
You look good.
18 pounds lighter.
All right.
This fool shamed me into jumping on the elliptical in between shows, and my back went out.
I know. I hear you.
On the elliptical. I wouldn't advertise that.
We're all trying.
Go
All
ahead.
right. Speaking of weight, guys, Max, we know John Jones says he wants to go up to heavyweight. We got Conor back. Which one of these fighters do you think has had a bigger impact on MMA?
They both had a huge impact. I'm going to go with John Jones, and I'll tell you why. If you're a feisty, small athlete, you're going to be a fighter. That's where the money is. And there's no like pound for pound best point guard. If you can't, you're playing with giants. No one cares if you're the pound for pound best linebacker. If you're too small to play linebacker, if you weigh 150 pounds, you ain't playing in the NFL. You're not playing Major League Baseball, likely. Jose Altuve, for every Jose Altuve, there's a million other guys. So the good small athletes are incentivized to go into fighting, especially if they have a fighting spirit, boxing and MMA. But the big athletes in this country, not worldwide, in this country, notice, Stephen A., how we're always like, what happened to the heavyweight division in boxing, right? What happened was the NFL and the NBA. That's what happened. When Muhammad Ali was heavyweight champ, if you get a shot at the title in the 1970s, you get a shot at Ali, you might make $1 million. And an offensive lineman in the NFL might make $30,000 or $40,000. There was financial incentive to go into fighting, and that evaporated because of these other leagues. But you know what happened when John Jones came on the scene? John Jones, from a football family, older brother and younger brother, played in the NFL. Chandler Jones, a star in the NFL. He's an athlete who likes to fight. Not a dude who couldn't do other things, so he's fighting, an athlete who likes to fight. And I predict that years from now, remember the Tiger Woods effect?
Yeah.
How it's harder for Tiger to beat these guys now because for the first time, athletes, parents were putting golf clubs in their hands. Now Tiger has to face a whole bunch of young guys who are golfing because of him. That's going to be the John Jones effect. Big American athletes with options. Look at John Jones, and I predict some of those guys are going to be fighters in the future. That's a different kind of impact.
I'm not disagreeing with any of that, but I would say Conor McGregor, only from this perspective. John Bones Jones is the best in the world. He's the man. And we all know how legit he is, how lethal he is, and probably moving up to heavyweight. It's going to be very interesting to see what he does at that level because he's just phenomenal. Having said all of that, he's just a fighter. He's just an elite fighter. Conor McGregor is something else. I'm talking box office. I have been.
You think you have recency bias right now just because it's been Conor more so of late?
I'm getting ready to bring up something that's not recent.
Okay.
I've been covering sports for over a quarter century. I've been to some major fights. I remember one time I told you, Max, of all the events, I mean, I was there when Temple was beat UMass. UMass was number 5 in the nation, and John Calipari's because I was there covering Allen Iverson when they went to the NBA Finals. You know, I mean, I was there. I was there when Jordan hit his shot over Utah to win his last title. I was there in Utah. Okay, I've seen a lot.
I saw you at Cavs Golden State Game 7.
2 great events. I've never seen. I felt at the time I never saw anything like when Mike Tyson walked into a ring, and I was there when he fought Andrew Galata in Detroit after he came out of retirement. And Conor McGregor against Eddie Alvarez at Madison Square Garden
I was
in
there.
November of 2006.
Yes.
Now, Molly, I would ask you to pause for a second because you've been to a lot of great events yourself. When Conor McGregor walked into the arena that night, walked into Madison Square Garden, walked into that octagon, I mean, there are very few moments that you see like that in sports. It's something, man. And what I'm saying to you is the UFC is in good stead. You look at the pandemic and how it's affected everybody. Dana White was pushing for events, and the UFC has been blowing up in the ratings. The interest is elevated. Joe Rogan and all of those dudes doing a great job. Ariel Helwani and those guys doing a great job promoting the sport. When you look at Conor McGregor and the kind of impact he can have, there is no question. I don't think John Bones Jones compares in that regard.
I'm glad you brought up Mike Tyson, because here's the thing about John Bones Jones. What Tyson's appeal was, he was the baddest man on the planet. It doesn't just mean you're heavyweight champ. It was something extra. No one took that mantle since Tyson. Lennox Lewis was the best, but he was more of a boxer. You had guys like now Tyson Fury, who's also a boxer, and they're British. In MMA, you had Brock Lesnar, a big, strong guy. He wasn't unbeatable. Yes. Randy Couture was great, but John Jones really took the mantle from Tyson, and in a new way, because it's more like a street fight than a boxing match, as the baddest man on the planet. When you thought of who's the best, because he's a heavyweight.
But Tyson was box office even after we learned he wasn't the baddest man on the planet. He was still box office. He's retired at age 54
no doubt.
And still.
Because of that. Because once upon a time, it was that.
Once upon a time, I understand. Well, once upon a time, McGregor was a bad man.
But but he's not a heavyweight. John Jones.
Right.
John Jones is going to have an impact that's going to be felt for decades.
Could have had an even bigger impact. We all know that.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's not over yet.
Yeah.
Not over yet.
No, of course. We're not saying that. We're rooting for him.
Love John Jones.
The full interview again with Conor McGregor, Stephen A. and Stephen A's World. You can check that out exclusively on ESPN.